The sky above Seoul turned dark at exactly 3 in the afternoon. It wasn't clouds. It wasn't a storm. Massive ships, each one the size of a small city, blocked out the sun. Captain Taiho stood on the roof of the military command center, staring up at the impossible sight. His radio crackled with panicked voices from every corner of the planet. The same thing was happening everywhere: Beijing, London, New York, Tokyo. Massive alien ships hovering over every major city on Earth. "Sir, we need to get inside," his lieutenant said, pulling at his arm. Taiho couldn't move. He had trained his whole life for war, but this was beyond anything humans had prepared for. Commander Yuna was in the United Earth Fleet headquarters when the ships appeared. She had been reviewing defense protocols, the same boring reports she read every week. Now those reports seemed like jokes. Earth's entire military force was designed to fight other humans, not aliens with technology that could cross the stars. "Ma'am, all our systems just went offline," a technician shouted. Yuna ran to the main screen. It showed nothing but static. Every satellite, every radar system, every communication network had stopped working in the same instant. "Get them back online now," Yuna ordered. "We're trying, but something is blocking everything. It's like our technology just stopped." Yuna felt cold fear creep up her spine. They had been disabled without a single shot fired. Whoever was in those ships had turned Earth's weapons off like flipping a light switch. Within an hour, a message appeared on every screen that still worked. Televisions, phones, computers, even old radios suddenly carried the same broadcast. A face appeared, not human but clearly intelligent. Its skin was pale blue, with 3 eyes arranged in a triangle on its face. When it spoke, the words came out in perfect English and every other human language simultaneously. "People of Earth, I am High Commander Vormath of the Valdrian Empire. We have been watching your species for many years. We have studied your history, your wars, your primitive attempts to reach beyond your atmosphere. We have concluded that you are not ready to join the civilized galaxy." Taiho watched the broadcast from the command center. Other officers stood around him, their faces pale with shock. "Your rockets are toys," Vormath continued. "Your weapons are crude. Your planet is divided into hundreds of arguing factions. You fight among yourselves over resources that are infinite in the cosmos. You destroy your own world with pollution and greed. You are children playing with matches, and you have nearly burned down your own house." The alien's 3 eyes seemed to look directly through the screen. "We have conquered 847 worlds. Each one submitted within days once they understood the futility of resistance. You will be no different. We offer you a choice, though the outcome is already decided. Submit to Valdrian rule and accept your place as workers in our empire. Your lives will continue, but under our guidance. You will build what we design. You will work where we assign you. In return, we will prevent you from destroying yourselves." Ambassador Minji watched from the United Nations Emergency Assembly in Geneva. Representatives from every nation sat in stunned silence. She wanted to stand, to speak, to say something defiant. But what could she say? The aliens had proven their superiority in minutes. Earth's weapons didn't work. Their ships filled the sky. What bargaining power did humans have? "The alternative," Vormath said, his voice colder now, "is correction. We will not destroy you. That would be wasteful. But we will make resistance impossible. You have 72 hours to decide. Choose submission, or we will choose for you." The screen went black. For a long moment, nobody in the UN assembly spoke. Then everyone tried to speak at once. Arguments erupted in dozens of languages. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Some suggested negotiation. Minji listened to them all and felt hopeless. They were still acting like this was something they could control. Back in Korea, scientist Jinho gathered his research team in a basement laboratory. They had been working on experimental power sources when the aliens arrived. Now their work seemed pointless, but Jinho wouldn't give up so easily. "Run every scan we have on those ships," he ordered. "If they use technology, it has to follow some kind of rules. Find me those rules." His assistant Sora started analyzing the data they had collected before their systems went down. She was a tactical analyst, trained to find patterns and weaknesses, but as she looked at the numbers, her heart sank. The energy output from just one alien ship was more than Earth's entire power grid. They weren't just more advanced. They were impossibly ahead. "Jinho, I don't think we can fight this," she said quietly. "Maybe not today," Jinho replied. "But if we're going to survive, we need to understand them." The next 72 hours were chaos. Governments collapsed as leaders fled or tried to secure power. Riots broke out in major cities. Some religious groups declared the aliens were gods or demons. The military tried to maintain order, but with their weapons disabled, they could only watch helplessly. Taiho spent those 3 days coordinating with other military units trying to prepare for whatever came next. He knew fighting was probably suicide, but he couldn't accept submission without even trying. He gathered every soldier willing to stand with him, even if it meant dying. Yuna worked to establish underground communication networks. If the aliens could disable their normal technology, maybe simpler systems would work. She set up old radio equipment, the kind that ran on basic electricity rather than computer chips. It was crude, but it worked. She sent out a message to anyone listening. Don't give up. If they wanted us dead, we'd already be dead. They need something from us. When the 72 hours ended, Vormath appeared again on every screen. This time, his image was accompanied by 7 other aliens, each from a different species. They stood in what looked like a council chamber, looking down at humanity like adults watching unruly children. Your time is up, Vormath announced. We have monitored your debates and your chaos. As expected, you could not even agree among yourselves. This proves our assessment was correct. You are not capable of self-governance. Therefore, the Valdrian Empire will now assume control of Earth. Resist and you will be contained. Comply and you will be preserved. This is not negotiable. This is simply reality. The screens showed Valdrian ships descending toward the ground. Smaller craft, each still massive by human standards, landed in capital cities around the world. Soldiers emerged, not carrying weapons but wearing suits that seemed to shimmer with energy. They walked through streets and humans moved aside. Some threw rocks or bottles, but these bounced off invisible shields. In Geneva, Vormath himself appeared at the UN building. His physical presence was even more intimidating than his hologram. He stood over 3 meters tall and his movements had a grace that seemed wrong, too smooth for something so large. Ambassador Minji stepped forward, trying to maintain dignity. We have not agreed to surrender. Vormath looked at her the way someone might look at an insect. Your agreement is not required. Your planet is now Valdrian territory. You will be assigned tasks according to your abilities. Compliance will be rewarded with survival. This discussion is over. Taiho heard those words through his underground radio network. He looked at the soldiers around him, men and women ready to fight with whatever weapons they could find. He thought about telling them to stand down, to save their lives. But before he could speak, a young private said what they were all thinking. Sir, even if we can't win, we have to try. We're humans. We don't just give up. Taiho felt something stir in his chest. Pride, maybe. Or stubbornness. The aliens thought they had already won. Maybe they had. But they clearly didn't understand humans very well. Humans had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and countless disasters. They had climbed from caves to reach the moon. They didn't survive by giving up when things looked impossible. All right, Taiho said. Then we fight. Not today, maybe not tomorrow. But we find their weakness and we fight. Around the world, millions of other humans made the same decision. The Valdrians thought they had conquered Earth. They had no idea what they had actually started. 3 weeks after the Valdrians arrived, they called another global broadcast. Vormath appeared on every screen again, but this time he wasn't alone. Behind him stood a massive display showing charts, graphs, and images. It looked like a school presentation, and that's exactly what it was. The Valdrians were going to teach humanity their place in the universe. We have completed our evaluation of your species, Vormath began. His voice carried the tone of a disappointed teacher. The results confirm what we already knew. Out of 848 species we have encountered, you rank last in nearly every meaningful category. The display behind him lit up with comparisons. The first showed technological advancement. A graph placed humanity at the very bottom, below creatures that looked like floating jellyfish and rock-like beings that apparently built quantum computers before humans, invented the wheel. The Krell achieved faster-than-light travel during their Bronze Age, Vormath explained. The Nomari unified their entire planet within 300 years of developing language. The Fen eliminated disease and hunger before they even discovered electricity. He paused, letting his 3 eyes scan the camera. Humanity has existed for 200,000 years. You still fight over food and fuel. Yuna watched the broadcast from her hidden command post. She had been coordinating resistance cells for weeks, but Seeing this public humiliation made her angry in a way combat never had. The Valdrians weren't just conquering Earth. They were trying to break human spirit. The display changed to show human history. Wars, genocides, pollution, poverty. Every terrible thing humanity had ever done played on screens around the world. Vormath narrated with clinical detachment. You have fought over 15,000 wars in your recorded history. You have built weapons capable of destroying your own species, then aimed them at each other. You have watched millions starve while destroying surplus food. You poison your air and water while knowing it will kill you. No species we have encountered has been so aggressively self-destructive. In Seoul, Taiho gathered with other resistance fighters in an abandoned subway tunnel. They listened to the broadcast in bitter silence. Everything Vormath said was true, and that made it worse. Humans had done all those terrible things. But they had also done amazing things, beautiful things. Why wasn't the alien showing those? As if reading his thoughts, Vormath addressed that exact question. Some of you wonder why we do not show your art, your music, your acts of kindness. We have seen these things. They are pleasant, but they are not achievements. Every species we have encountered creates beauty. That is not special. What matters is whether a species can govern itself, advance responsibly, and contribute to galactic civilization. By these measures, humanity fails completely. The display showed other alien worlds, beautiful cities floating in clouds, underwater metropolises with technology that looked like magic, vast space stations orbiting binary stars. These were the civilizations that had earned their place in the galaxy. Earth, with its pollution and conflict, looked primitive by comparison. You are not evil, Vormath concluded. You are simply young, foolish, and dangerous to yourselves. The Valdrian Empire will now save you from your own nature. Within 1 year, Earth will be reorganized into production zones. You will work, you will rest, and you will no longer waste resources on war or waste. Your children will be educated in proper thinking. In 3 generations, you will thank us for this intervention. The broadcast ended. Within hours, Valdrian ships began the reorganization. Massive machines descended from orbit and started constructing walls around major cities. These weren't walls to keep people in, the Valdrians explained. They were guidance structures to help humans learn efficient movement patterns. Minji had been forced to work as a translator for the Valdrians. They needed humans who could speak multiple languages to help communicate with different populations. She hated every moment of it, but she also listened carefully to everything the aliens said to each other. One day, she overheard 2 Valdrian officers talking about something called psychological breaking protocols. They were discussing how long it typically took for a conquered species to accept their situation. According to their data, most species reached acceptance within 4 to 6 months. After that, active resistance dropped to nearly 0. Earth humans should follow the same pattern, one officer said. We've implemented standard protocols: food rationing, separation of families, mandatory work assignments, and constant reminders of their inferiority. By month 6, they should be compliant. Minji filed that information away. 6 months. That's how long the Valdrians expected humans to keep fighting. She needed to get that message to Taiho and the others. They had to survive longer than 6 months. They had to prove the Valdrians wrong. But surviving was becoming harder every day. The Valdrians established work camps where humans labored 12 hours daily, building structures the aliens designed. Jinho ended up in one of these camps along with his research team. Their scientific knowledge made them valuable workers, so they were assigned to a manufacturing facility that produced components for Valdrian technology. Jinho hated the work, but he also saw an opportunity. Every day he worked with alien technology. He couldn't understand most of it, but he observed everything. How the tools worked, how the materials responded, how the energy flowed through circuits. At night, in the cramped barracks, he drew diagrams from memory and shared them with other scientists in the camp. Sora ended up in a different kind of facility. The Valdrians needed data processors, humans who could organize and analyze information. She was assigned to a building in what used to be Moscow, working alongside hundreds of other humans. They processed records, updated databases, and tracked resource distribution across Earth. It was boring, soul-crushing work. But Sora paid attention to everything that crossed her screen. She noticed patterns in the Valdrian supply chains. She saw which facilities were heavily guarded and which weren't. She tracked the movement of Valdrian personnel and equipment. All of this information went into her memory, waiting for the day it might be useful. Meanwhile, Yuna had been captured during a failed sabotage attempt. She and 3 other resistance fighters tried to damage a Valdrian power relay outside Beijing. The operation went wrong when their homemade explosives failed to penetrate the alien shields. Valdrian soldiers captured all 4 of them without injury. They didn't even draw weapons. They just activated devices on their belts and the humans collapsed, paralyzed by some kind of neural disruption field. Yuna woke up in a white room with no windows or doors visible. A voice spoke from somewhere above her. Commander Yuna of the former United Earth Fleet, you have been selected for re-education. The process will take approximately 3 months. Cooperation will reduce discomfort. Resistance will extend the duration. Do you understand? I understand that you're cowards, Yuna said. You couldn't beat us in a fair fight, so you disabled our weapons and acted like you won. There was a pause. Then Vormath himself appeared in the room, or rather, a hologram of him. He studied her with his 3 eyes. A fair fight, he repeated. Tell me, Commander, when you humans developed nuclear weapons, did you give them to the other nations fairly? When you invented antibiotics, did you share them equally? Or did the strong use their advantages to dominate the weak? Yuna said nothing. She knew he was right, but she hated him for it. You rage against us for doing what you have always done to each other. Vormath continued. The difference is that we are efficient and organized. We do not pretend our conquest is anything other than what it is. We do not claim to bring freedom while imposing control. We are honest conquerors, which is more than humanity has ever been. If you're such great conquerors, why do you need to break our spirits? Yuna asked. Why not just kill us and take the planet? Because, Commander, you are useful. Humans are adaptable, creative, and surprisingly resilient. These qualities make you excellent workers. But these same qualities make you difficult to control. Therefore, we must help you understand that resistance is pointless. Once you truly believe this, you will serve willingly. It is more efficient than force. Vormath's hologram leaned closer. In 3 months, you will walk out of this facility grateful for Valdrian guidance. You will help us convince other humans to accept their place. And you will do this not because we force you, but because you will genuinely believe it is the right choice. The hologram vanished. Yuna was left alone in the White Room. She didn't know exactly what re-education meant, but she knew it was designed to break her. The Valdrians were good at breaking things. They had broken Earth's defenses in hours. They had broken human governments in days. They had broken organized resistance in weeks. But Yuna made herself a promise in that White Room. She would pretend to break. She would say whatever they wanted to hear. She would act like a perfect, re-educated human. And then when they trusted her, she would find their weakness. Because every system had a weakness, even the Valdrians. Around the world, millions of humans made similar promises. In work camps and re-education facilities, in hidden resistance cells and quiet homes, humans endured. The Valdrians called it submission. 6 months into the occupation, something strange started happening. The Valdrians noticed it first in their efficiency reports. Human productivity should have been increasing as the population accepted their situation. Instead, it was staying the same and in some areas actually decreasing. Small accidents kept happening in the factories. Equipment broke down more often than it should. Materials got mixed up or delivered to wrong locations. None of these incidents were big enough to investigate seriously. They looked like honest mistakes, the kind that happen when people are tired and overworked. But they kept happening and the pattern was spreading. In Seoul, someone painted Earth's flag on the side of a Valdrian supply building. The guards cleaned it off within an hour. But the next night, 3 more flags appeared in different locations. Then 5, then dozens. It became a game. Humans painting symbols of resistance, Valdrians cleaning them, humans painting more. Taiho heard about the flags while hiding in an underground network of tunnels beneath the city. His resistance cell had grown from 20 fighters to over 200. They hadn't won any battles or damaged any important targets, but they hadn't given up either. That counted for something. Sir, we received a message from Busan, one of his fighters said. They've been studying the Valdrian power systems. There might be a pattern to how their shields work. Taiho looked at the crude diagram the fighter showed him. It was mostly guesswork, but there was something there. The Valdrians used quantum-linked networks for their technology. Everything connected to everything else through invisible signals. If they could disrupt those signals, even for a moment, they might create a weakness. Send this to every other cell you can reach, Taiho ordered, and find me someone who actually understands quantum physics. That someone turned out to be Jinho. After 6 months in the work camp, He had been quietly building a network of scientists and engineers. They shared information whenever they could, passing notes hidden in food packages or whispering during the brief rest periods. Jinho had been reconstructing Valdrian technology piece by piece, storing everything in his memory because they weren't allowed paper or computers. When Taiho's message reached him through the underground network, Jinho studied the diagrams carefully. His hands shook with excitement as he realized what he was looking at. The theory was sound. Valdrian shields relied on constant quantum entanglement with their power sources. Disrupt that entanglement and the shields would fail for a few seconds. Building a device to do this was another matter. He needed components they didn't have, tools they couldn't access, and time they couldn't spare. But Jinho had learned something important during 6 months of forced labor. You didn't need perfect solutions. You just needed good enough solutions, and humans were excellent at making things work with limited resources. Meanwhile, Sora had been having her own success in the data processing facility. She had access to Valdrian logistics systems, and after months of careful observation, she had figured out their security protocols. The Valdrians were advanced but predictable. Their systems followed strict patterns, and patterns could be exploited. She started stealing small amounts of data. Nothing that would trigger alarms, just bits and pieces of information about fleet movements, supply schedules, and personnel assignments. She memorized what she could and passed the rest to other humans in the facility, who had contacts in the Resistance. The Valdrians noticed none of this. They were too confident in their superiority. They believed their technology was beyond human understanding, their systems impossible to hack, their control absolute. They had conquered 847 worlds using the same methods, and it had always worked. Earth was different, but they didn't know that yet. Yuna emerged from re-education after 3 months exactly as Vormath had predicted. She spoke calmly about accepting Valdrian guidance. She thanked the re-education staff for helping her see the truth. She volunteered to help convince other humans to cooperate. The Valdrians believed her performance completely. They assigned her to work as a liaison between Valdrian command and human work groups. This gave her access to multiple facilities and the freedom to move around without constant supervision. The Valdrians thought they had converted her. They had actually given their enemy exactly what she needed. Yuna began carefully reconnecting the Resistance networks. She couldn't meet with Taiho directly. The risk was too high, but she could pass information through intermediaries. She learned about Jinho's work on the shield disruptor. She knew about Sora's data theft. She saw the flags appearing in cities around the world, small acts of defiance that meant humans hadn't given up. She also made an unexpected friend. Kess was a young Valdrian technician, barely into adulthood by his species standards. He worked in the communication hub where Yuna spent most of her time. Unlike the other Valdrians, Kess actually talked to the humans. He asked them questions about Earth culture, about their history, about what life was like before the occupation. "I don't understand why you resist," Kess said one day while they were alone. "The Empire has given your species order and purpose. Before we arrived, you were destroying yourselves." "We were surviving," Yuna replied carefully. "Humans have always struggled, but we've always found ways to continue." "But why struggle when you could simply accept guidance?" Kess seemed genuinely confused. "My people evolved on a perfect world. We never faced extinction or war or famine. When we reached the stars, we found that most species had similar histories. They were grateful when we offered them stability." Yuna felt something click in her mind. "You've never faced a real threat, have you? Your species, I mean. You never almost died out." Kess thought about this. "No, we were fortunate. Our world provided everything we needed." "Then how can you understand humans?" Yuna asked. "We crawled out of caves during ice ages. We survived plagues that killed half our population. We've faced extinction dozens of times and kept going. That's not weakness, Kess, that's our strength." The young Valdrian looked troubled. "But the Council says your history of struggle proves you are underdeveloped, or maybe it proves we're tougher than you think." That conversation stayed with Kess. He started reviewing Earth's history on his own. Not just the wars and disasters the Council had shown, but everything. He read about humans climbing mountains for no practical reason. He learned about people who sacrificed their own lives to save strangers. He saw art created in concentration camps and songs written in war zones. He began to understand that human dysfunction might actually be a form of strength his own people had never needed to develop. As the 6-month mark passed, The Valdrian Command held a meeting to review Earth's integration progress. According to their protocols, human resistance should have ended by now. The reports showed otherwise. Productivity is below expected levels, one officer reported. Accidents are increasing. We've detected unauthorized communication networks. How extensive? Vormath asked. Unknown. The networks are primitive, using old electromagnetic signals rather than quantum links. We've been ignoring them because they seemed harmless. Begin monitoring them, Vormath ordered, and increase security at critical facilities. If humans are organizing resistance, we need to identify the leaders. But the Valdrians still didn't understand what they were facing. They thought resistance meant armies and weapons. They didn't recognize that painting flags was resistance. Slowing down work was resistance. Stealing data was resistance. Every human who refused to give up hope was an act of resistance. In tunnels and basements, in work camps and hidden rooms, humans prepared. Jinho built his first prototype shield disruptor using scavenged parts and improvised components. It was ugly and probably wouldn't work, but it was a start. Sora compiled maps showing every Valdrian facility on Earth, with notes about security levels and guard rotations. Taiho trained fighters using improvised weapons and guerrilla tactics. Minji, still working as a translator, learned something important during a council meeting she was asked to observe. The Valdrians were planning a major broadcast in 2 weeks. They would announce that Earth's integration was complete and display human leaders who had accepted Valdrian rule as examples for others to follow. It was supposed to be a celebration of their successful conquest, a final nail in the coffin of human independence. The Resistance saw it differently. It was an opportunity. Minji got word to Taiho through the underground network. They're going to broadcast from the main command center in Geneva. Every human on Earth will be forced to watch. Security will be heavy, but if we could disrupt it, we'd have a platform, Taiho finished. If we could get even one message out, every human would hear it. It's a suicide mission, one of his fighters pointed out. We'd never make it out alive. Maybe, Taiho agreed. But we'd prove that humans aren't broken. Sometimes that's more important than survival. The plan came together over the next 2 weeks. It was desperate and probably impossible, but humans had made a specialty of achieving impossible things. Jinho would provide the shield disruptor. Sora would provide intelligence about the facility layout and security. Yuna would use her liaison access to get them inside. Minji would be there as a translator, ready to help from the inside. The day of the broadcast arrived with clear skies over Geneva. Every screen on Earth showed the same image. The Valdrian Command Center where Vormath would announce humanity's successful integration into the Empire. Millions of humans watched because they had no choice. The Valdrians had made viewing mandatory. Inside the command center, Minji stood with other translators, her heart pounding. She knew Taiho and his team were somewhere in the building, using maintenance tunnels that Sora's intelligence had identified. The plan was simple and insane. They would use Jinho's shield disruptor to create a brief window, fight their way to the broadcast chamber and say something, anything, that would remind humans they weren't defeated. Minji didn't know if they would succeed. She didn't even know if the disruptor would work, but she was ready to play her part when the moment came. Vormath stood before the cameras, his 3 eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Behind him stood the Valdrian Council and several human collaborators, people who had genuinely accepted Valdrian rule and now helped convince others to do the same. People of Earth, Vormath began, today marks the completion of your integration. 6 months ago you were a species in chaos, destroying yourselves through war and waste. Today you are productive members of the Valdrian Empire. Your cities are organized. Your resources are managed efficiently. Your children are learning proper values. This is a moment of celebration. Somewhere deep in the building, Jinho activated his device. It looked like a mess of wires and salvaged components held together with improvised solder. By all rights, it shouldn't work. But Jinho had learned something during his month studying Valdrian technology. Advanced didn't mean invincible. It just meant more complicated, and complicated systems had more points of failure. The disruptor sent out a pulse of electromagnetic interference tuned to disrupt quantum entanglement. For exactly 4 seconds, every Valdrian shield in the building flickered and failed. 4 seconds was enough. Taiho and his team burst from a maintenance access tunnel directly into the command center. They had no functioning weapons, the Valdrians had seen to that months ago. But they had surprise speed and absolute determination. They pushed past shocked Valdrian guards who were still trying to understand why their shield generators had stopped working. Taiho was shot within seconds. A Valdrian weapon hit him in the shoulder and he went down hard, but his team kept moving. They had known the cost going in. 2 more fighters fell before they reached the broadcast chamber. Yuna appeared from another entrance using her liaison credentials to get past the first security checkpoint. She had been waiting for the shield failure, and when it came, she acted without hesitation. She pulled a fire alarm, old human technology that the Valdrians had ignored because it seemed harmless. The noise created more confusion. Vormath's broadcast was interrupted by the chaos. Alarms blaring, humans running through hallways, guards shouting in multiple languages. The cameras kept rolling because the Valdrians wanted to show they had everything under control. They were about to demonstrate how they dealt with human resistance. Taiho, bleeding from his shoulder, was dragged into the broadcast chamber by Valdrian soldiers. His remaining team members were captured within minutes. They stood surrounded, outnumbered, clearly defeated. The whole world watched. Vormath looked at them with something like pity. This is the last gasp of human resistance. You see how pointless it is? They cannot even reach me before they are stopped. This is what remains of your so-called warrior spirit. The Valdrian guards pointed weapons at the captured humans. It should have been over. The Resistance's desperate plan had failed. But then Minji did something nobody expected. She stepped forward from her position with the translators, walking calmly toward Vormath. "I have a question," she said in perfect Valdrian language. Vormath was surprised enough to hesitate. A human speaking his language fluently was unusual. "You may ask." "What?" Minji said slowly, clearly, so every human and every Valdrian would hear. "Did you have to overcome?" The question hung in the air. Vormath's 3 eyes narrowed in confusion. "Clarify your question." "Your empire has shown us your achievements," Minji continued. "Your technology, your conquered worlds, your perfect systems, but you've never told us what you overcame to achieve these things. What challenges did your species face? What nearly destroyed you? What did you have to survive?" "This is irrelevant," Vormath said, but Minji saw something in his posture. Uncertainty, maybe, or perhaps he had never been asked this question before. "It's very relevant," Minji pressed. "You judge us by your standards, but we don't know what those standards cost you. Every achievement has a price. What price did the Valdrians pay?" From her position near the data terminals, Sora made her move. She had been working in Valdrian systems long enough to know how to access their historical databases. She pulled up information about Valdrian history and displayed it on the screens that were broadcasting around the world. The data showed what Minji had already guessed. The Valdrian homeworld was a paradise. Mild climate, abundant resources, no natural predators, no extinction events. The Valdrians had evolved in a Garden of Eden. They developed technology because they were curious, not because they needed it to survive. "You've never faced a real threat," Yuna said, speaking up from where she stood with the captured fighters. "Your species has never almost gone extinct. You've never had to choose between survival and morality. You've never had to sacrifice everything just to see another day." Kess, watching from his station, felt his world shift. He had spent weeks studying human history and now it all clicked into place. Humans weren't defective. They were forged in circumstances the Valdrians had never experienced. "Commander," Kess said, his voice quiet but clear in the chamber, "I've been studying Earth's history. May I share something?" Vormath looked at his young technician with surprise. "Speak." "Humans have survived 6 mass extinction events," Kess said, pulling up more data. "Their planet has tried to kill them repeatedly. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plague. 99% of all species that ever lived on Earth are extinct. Humans survived because they're adaptable." Jinho, being held by guards but still conscious, added weakly, "We're also stubborn. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. Not fast, not strong, but we never gave up. We would chase prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. That's in our DNA." One of the Valdrian council members reviewed the data with growing concern. "Commander, our psychological protocols were designed for species with normal development patterns. Earth humans developed under extreme pressure. They're not responding to our methods because they're accustomed to much worse." Vormath wanted to dismiss this, but the data was undeniable. Human history was a story of barely surviving again and again, and somehow continuing anyway. The Valdrians had tried to break humans using techniques that worked on species from stable worlds. But humans came from a world that had been trying to kill them for 200,000 years. This changes nothing, Vormath said firmly. You still cannot defeat us. No, Minji agreed. Not today. Maybe not for years. But you've made a mistake, Commander. You've given us a challenge, and humans are very, very good at overcoming challenges. You wanted to conquer Earth? You've just given us a reason to become better conquerors than you. Taiho, blood soaking through his uniform, managed to stand. Guards moved to restrain him, but Vormath gestured for them to wait. The human could barely stand, clearly no threat. We've been fighting since before we could speak, Taiho said, his voice rough but steady. We've survived ice and fire and plague and war. We've climbed from caves to touch the moon. We've split the atom and mapped our own genes. And we did all of that while fighting each other. Imagine what we'll accomplish now that you've given us a common enemy. You're wounded, outnumbered, and defeated, Vormath pointed out. Today, Taiho agreed. But we heal. We learn, we adapt. That's what we do. It's all we've ever done. Minji stepped closer to the camera, knowing the whole world was watching. Human and Valdrian alike heard her next words. The sentence that would change everything. We've been fighting since before we could speak, and we'll be fighting long after you've forgotten what it means to struggle. You wanted to conquer Earth? You've just given us a reason to conquer the stars. The words rippled through human populations around the world. In work camps and hidden bunkers, in occupied cities and resistance cells, humans heard those words and felt something ignite inside them. Hope, maybe, or fury, or simple, stubborn determination. The Valdrians heard those words too. And for the first time, some of them felt something they had never felt before. Doubt. Not about their current superiority, that was obvious, but doubt about whether conquering humanity had been wise. Vormath looked at the humans before him. Wounded, captured, clearly defeated in this moment, but not broken. After 6 months of occupation, psychological conditioning, and constant reinforcement of Valdrian superiority, these humans still believed they could win. That belief, Vormath suddenly realized, might be more dangerous than any weapon. Take them away, he ordered. End the broadcast, but it was too late. The message had been sent, and messages once sent could never be taken back. The Valdrian Council held an emergency meeting 3 hours after the broadcast. Every member had reviewed the data, and none of them liked what they saw. The numbers told a story they had never encountered in 847 previous conquests. Human resistance has increased by 40% since the broadcast, a military officer reported. Production sabotage is up. Underground networks are more active. Our psychological models predicted total compliance by month 6. Instead, humans are more organized than when we arrived. They're learning, another council member added, pulling up reports from the work camps. Human scientists have reverse-engineered our basic shield technology. They shouldn't be capable of this. Vormath studied the reports in silence. He had spent months trying to break human spirit, and he had failed. Worse, his attempts had created the opposite effect. The broadcast that was supposed to celebrate Earth's integration had become a rallying cry for resistance. How is this possible? He asked. Our methods have worked on every other species. A xenopsychologist stepped forward, a Valdrian scientist who specialized in studying conquered populations. Commander, I've been reviewing Earth data. I believe I understand the problem. Humans are what we would classify as an apex adversity species. Explain. Most intelligent species evolved in relatively stable environments. They developed technology to make comfortable lives more comfortable. Humans evolved in a hostile environment. They developed technology to survive. This creates a fundamental difference in psychology. The scientist displayed neural scans comparing human brains to other species. When most species face overwhelming pressure, their survival instinct tells them to submit. When humans face overwhelming pressure, their survival instinct tells them to fight. They fought each other constantly, Vormath pointed out. Their history is nothing but war. Exactly. 200,000 years of constant conflict made them excellent at war. Commander, we haven't been breaking them. We've been training them. The scientist pulled up more data. Every human who survived re-education learned to deceive us. Every human in the work camps learned to sabotage efficiently. Every human we thought we controlled became better at resistance. We've been teaching them how to fight us. The room fell silent. Vormath felt cold realization settling over him. The Valdrians had never faced a species like this because species like this didn't exist on paradise worlds. They existed on death worlds. planets that constantly tried to kill their inhabitants. Earth was a death world and humans were death world survivors. There's more, the scientist continued. We detected unusual energy signatures from Earth's moon. Our sensors show construction activity. Impossible, Vormath said. We disabled all their industrial capability. They rebuilt it, using our technology combined with their own methods. Commander, they're building something. The Council immediately sent a fleet to investigate. What they found shocked them. Hidden in a crater on the far side of the moon, humans had constructed a spacecraft. It wasn't large, barely big enough for a crew of 10. It was ugly with visible welds and mismatched components. By Valdrian standards, it looked like it was held together with hope and desperation. But it worked. The ship powered up when Valdrian sensors focused on it, and for a brief moment its engines burned with quantum flame. Humans had reverse-engineered Valdrian propulsion technology in less than 7 months. Then they had improved it, combining Valdrian efficiency with human improvisation to create something new. The ship wasn't a weapon. It wasn't even finished, but it was proof that humans could learn, adapt, and create. Given time, they would match Valdrian technology. Given more time, they might exceed it. Back at the command center, Kess accessed historical records that had never seemed important before. He found something the Council needed to see. The Valdrian Empire had existed for 12,000 years, but their technological advancement had been linear and slow. They made steady progress because they faced no pressure to innovate quickly. Humanity had gone from horse-drawn carts to spacecraft in less than 200 years. Their rate of innovation was exponential, driven by competition, war, and desperate need. If humans kept advancing at their current rate, with Valdrian technology as a starting point, they would match the Empire within decades, not centuries. Kess brought this data to Vormath. The commander studied it for a long time before speaking. What are you suggesting? That we made a mistake, Commander. We should have destroyed them or left them alone. Conquering them has created something we've never faced before. A species that knows our technology, understands our tactics, and has every reason to hate us. Vormath reviewed intelligence reports from the work camps. Jinho had taught hundreds of other scientists to understand Valdrian systems. Sora had mapped every Valdrian facility on Earth and shared that information through resistance networks. Teho, despite his injury, was training thousands of fighters using guerrilla tactics specifically designed to counter Valdrian advantages, and Minji's words had spread like fire through the human population. We'll be fighting long after you've forgotten what it means to struggle. It had become a motto, scrawled on walls, whispered in work camps, and repeated in underground meetings. If we withdraw now, we show weakness, one council member argued. 847 species watch how we handle Earth. If we retreat, others might think they can resist. If we stay, humans will eventually kill us, Kess said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. The young technician had never spoken against the council before. I've studied their history thoroughly. When humans face existential threats, they don't forgive. They avenge. If we try to exterminate them, survivors will hunt us across the galaxy. Their entire culture will become focused on destroying the Valdrian Empire. That's speculation, another council member said. Is it? Look at their myths. David and Goliath. Spartans at Thermopylae. The Alamo. Every human culture celebrates last stands against superior forces. They don't just accept being underdogs. They romanticize it. And Commander, they have 8 billion people on this planet. How many do you think would need to survive for them to rebuild? 1,000? 100? A dozen? The Council reviewed Earth's history of genocides. Humans had tried to exterminate each other repeatedly and it never worked. Small populations always survived and rebuilt. Humans were good at surviving the impossible because they had been doing it for thousands of generations. Vormath made his decision. He called a council vote, and after hours of debate, the decision was made. The Valdrian Empire would withdraw from Earth, but it couldn't look like defeat. They would present it as strategic repositioning. They would claim humans weren't worth the resources required to maintain occupation. The real reason, which only the Council would know, was fear. Not fear of humanity's current capabilities, fear of what humanity would become if given time and motivation. The Valdrians had accidentally created the most dangerous enemy possible, a species that now understood advanced technology, knew how to organize resistance, and had an entire planet united by hatred of their conquerors. Before the withdrawal, Vormath demanded one final meeting with Minji. She was brought to the command center expecting execution or worse. Instead, she found the High Commander alone, studying Earth through a view screen. "You were right," he said without turning. "We've never been tested. My species evolved in paradise and spread to the stars because we could, not because we needed to. You evolved in hell and reached for the stars because it was that or die. Are you here to kill us now?" Minji asked. "No, we're leaving. The Council has decided Earth is not worth the resources required for occupation." He finally turned to face her. "That's the official reason. The real reason is that you scared us. Not today, but what you'll become tomorrow. We've been studying your advancement rate. In 20 years, you'll match our technology. In 50, you'll exceed it. In 100 years, humans will be a galactic power and we'll be the ones trying to survive." Minji felt something like victory, though it was mixed with bitterness. "You destroyed our world, killed thousands, enslaved millions, and now you're just leaving? What would you have us do? Stay until you kill us all?" "We're not martyrs, Ambassador. We're conquerors who realized we picked the wrong target." Vormath pulled up an image of the crude ship humans had built on the moon. "This terrifies me more than any weapon. You built a spacecraft from stolen technology while living in work camps. Imagine what you'll build when you're free." He turned off the display. "I'm addressing Earth one final time. Then we withdraw. What you do after that is your choice. But hear this warning. The galaxy is not empty. There are species far more dangerous than us. Some will see your potential and want to nurture it. Others will see your danger and try to eliminate you. Choose your path carefully." 12 hours later, Vormath made his final broadcast to Earth. He stood in the same chamber where Minji had asked her question, and his words were measured. "The Valdrian Empire is withdrawing from Earth. We came to guide you toward civilization. We now see that you must find your own path. You are released from Valdrian authority. What you build from here is your responsibility." He paused, and for a moment his 3 eyes showed something that might have been respect or might have been regret.